Hey guys, Zack here, and this is my review of Danny Phantom. Okay, so this episode, Prisoners of Love, is interesting. It introduces us to the Ghost Zone, but is also the episode where this series kind of takes on a bit of a more mature tone, which is a large reason of why people praise it heavily. So, the episode opens up with Danny and Jack working on a new invention, the Fenton Speeder, which as we find out is a large van-like thing that is designed to take people in and to navigate people through the Ghost Zone. It is just designed with that purpose in mind. But it's at this point where Maddie comes down and asks Jack if there's anything, if everything's going okay, and he admits that everything is, but then also wonders if there's anything else that he's forgotten to do, and particularly regarding today's date. And what we find out is that apparently it is Jack's and Maddie's anniversary, and he has unfortunately slipped his mind, because we know Jack is a bit absent-minded. We've established that he's a bit oblivious and absent-minded, and this of course causes Maddie to then proceed to fly off the handle at him, because what we find out is that this is the 18th year in a row of them being married that he has forgotten their anniversary, and becomes so angry that she slaps the side of the Fenton Speeder. And Danny, who is currently in the cockpit at the time when this happens, winds up going straight into the ghost portal and into the Ghost Zone, where we formally see the Ghost Zone for the first time. It's a pretty cool idea. And Jack and Maddie, I should mention, don't even notice that he's gone. They're just very busy arguing. So they completely miss him. But in any case, Danny proceeds to sail aimlessly through the Ghost Zone, completely unaware of where he is or what's going on, when he suddenly encounters a ghost named Walker, who uses his ghost powers to essentially become a lot bigger than he normally is, and then proceeds to scold Danny for being there, pointing out that he's driving an unregistered human vehicle through the Ghost Zone, and points out that that's against the rules and he's not allowed to do that. And of course Danny proceeds to point out to Walker, very nervously might I add, because he's a little intimidated by him, that he didn't mean to be there, and that he's a little bit lost and from out of town, and he didn't know it was a rule. And Walker does kind of understand, pointing out that ignorance of the law is no excuse, but also points out that since it was an honest mistake, he'll let Danny go, but also points out that if he sees Danny around there again, they're going to have a problem. And Danny, of course, then proceeds to put the Fenton Speeder in reverse, and remarks that he's sorry to bother him. At which point he just returns back to the lab, no problem. While Jack and Maddie finish their argument, with Maddie pointing out that there are some things are more important than hunting ghosts, before running upstairs angry. And of course Danny comes out terrified about the experience he just had, while Jack just points out that he understands where Danny's coming from, pointing out that he's never seen Maddie this mad. But in any case, it's at this point where Maddie then proceeds to put all of her stuff into a suitcase and proceeds to drag it out to a taxi, and this of course causes Jack to kind of ask her where she's going. And what we find out is that once again Jack is once again oblivious about dates, because she proceeds to mention that she's going out to visit her sister, and she asks to remember the date, and if he remembers the date, and about how they talked about before, and about the divorce. And which point she proceeds to get in the taxi and leave. And admittedly, Danny and Jazz only hear like the latter half of that conversation, and Danny starts getting a little bit panicky because he believes that because he because he starts to believe that that things are going really bad between his parents, and Jazz agrees, but also points out to Danny that that Dad is normally the kind of person who will not take the initiative to go apologize. So she points out she'll probably stay that way. But it's at this point where Jack insists that she's wrong, and that this time around he's actually going to do something. At which point he packs his own suitcase and proceeds to throw it into a taxi of his own, and claims that he's going all the way to Arkansas to beg to apologize to his wife. And at which point he throws the bag into the taxi and accidentally hits the taxi driver, who drives off without him, so he has to chase his taxi down. And of course, Danny is understandably worried because he points out that his parents have never really fought like that before, and he's incredibly worried about if they're going to split up. But of course, he realizes that he's essentially talking to himself, because Jazz is currently going into a bit of a nervous break because she's realizing she was wrong, and doesn't understand how her dad could actually go and apologize, and she's essentially catatonic for the rest of the episode because she still can't wrap her head around the fact that she was wrong for pretty much for the first time ever. She's not coping with it. And she of course starts consulting her books, trying to figure out how exactly it is that she must have missed something. But while Danny of course is trying to do as best he can to smooth things over with his mother by making sure the house is clean and spotless before she gets back. And of course he's secretly using his ghost powers while in the process to kind of clean the house. And Jazz, of course, doesn't notice him using his ghost powers or turning into Danny Phantom. He just kind of appears behind. He just kind of uses them to appear behind her so that she doesn't suspect anything. But she also insists that he's being way too loud, and that she's currently going through an emotional crisis right now, and she can't really stand all the loud noise. And then proceeds to tell him that she's going to the library. And once she's gone, he proceeds to return back to his ghost form and continues cleaning the house. And eventually, he goes into the basement. He goes in the basement, wondering if the lab is clean. And the process quickly discovers that the basement is kind of a hot mess. There's just gadgets and gizmos and spills and things and books and a whole bunch of other things everywhere. And he's realizing that his mom's going to have a cow when she comes back. So in the process, he accidentally fires off a ghost blast, which knocks some trash into the nearby trash can, and realizing that his ghost blasts have the ability, essentially give him telekinetic abilities to put things where they're supposed to be. He starts using them to clean up the lab. He just starts blasting everything and sending everything back where it's supposed to be. But of course, during this little cleaning sequence, he accidentally blasts the present, which he realizes too late it just sails through the ghost portal and disappears. At which point he notes that the tag fell off of it, and he reads the note, and what he discovers is that it was a present from Jack to Maddie, which he specifically bought to paper over the whole mess of the relationship that he's made, and and to apologize for being an idiot. So, and of course, this of course causes Danny to start worrying because he realizes he needs to get that. He realizes that present was very important, and that his parents will likely, split up and get divorced if he doesn't get it back. So, of course, he immediately starts panicking. Meanwhile, Jack is currently on his way to Arkansas, where he is currently in a plane with a bunch of other people he does not know, and it's a little bit of a smaller plane, and does wonder if they're going to be arriving at the airport anytime soon. But it's at this point where his pilots, two hillbilly characters, but his two pilots tell him that there isn't any airport where he's going, and then hands him a parachute and has him jump out. Meanwhile, we meet Maddie's sister Alicia, who is currently, what we find out is that Alicia apparently, first and foremost, does not approve of Jack, because obviously Jack's Jack's an idiot, but we've established that he's a bit oblivious and he's a bit of an idiot, but he means well. But of course, she proceeds to point out that she really should consider getting divorced, pointing out that she's been divorced for many years now, and that she's doing just fine. But Maddie, of course, points out that was obviously right for her sister, but not right for her, but doesn't know if that's right for her, and is obviously worried that it's not going to go as smoothly. That's obviously not just going to go well. But it's at this point where of course Alicia points out that Jack obviously prioritizes hunting ghosts, is a ghost hunting fool, and prioritizes hunting ghosts over her. So he points out and she points out that she probably is better off. But it's at this point where where supposedly a quote unquote ghost shows up, and it's just Jack stuck in his parachute, but Maddie thinks it's a ghost initially and tries to hunt it until she discovers that no, it's just Jack. And of course Jack wonders what exactly it is. Maddie wonders what Jack's doing there, but he explains that he's there to apologize. But first and foremost, he needs to go to the bathroom, and immediately runs off in the direction of Alicia's rhubarb, which she tells him not to go, which she insists that he shouldn't go on. But meanwhile, Danny was currently at school during all of this, and he is currently freaking out because he points out that the present was very important and he lost it, and now his parents are probably going to split up, and because of it, if he doesn't get that present back, so they can make amends, and he's essentially very worried that his parents are going to split throughout this episode. And of course Sam reassures him, pointing out that it's probably just a misunderstanding, and that it's probably not as serious as Danny is making it out to be. And Tucker adds on to that, pointing out that it's not like she actually said the word divorce. And of course Danny starts panicking even more after Tucker says that, pointing out that she did say the word, and that it's definitely going to happen now. But And of course, Sam tries to ask Tucker to reassure him, but Tucker doesn't really know how. But it's at this point where Danny then proceeds to gain resolve, pointing out that if he's going to save his parents' marriage, he needs to go into the ghost zone and find the present before he needs to go into the ghost zone and find the present before his parents split. So he then proceeds to make plans to do that, and of course the big plan is that as we find out, is that he's going to go into the ghost zone. Sam and Tucker have given him a webcam so they can communicate with a headset. So he's going to go into the ghost zone to find the present, and Sam and Tucker are going to act as his guides from the Fenton speeder, and they're just gonna chill out in the lab and make sure, and initially that wasn't the plan, since Sam is obviously since Sam obviously thinks that Danny can cover more ground on his own, and that's obviously why Danny decided not to take it. But we know the actual reason is that Walker is looking out for the Fenton speeder, and will probably get in trouble. Danny will probably get in trouble if he's seen driving around in it, but. Of course, Tucker also wonders why he didn't do that, pointing out how he couldn't take it, pointing out that it is very high tech and has a lot of cool gadgets in it, and of course he starts fiddling with the buttons while Sam just kind of yells at him to knock it off. But in case, Danny then proceeds to go into the ghost portal, and starts flying through the ghost zone to try and figure out where he's supposed to go. But of course what we quickly find out is that the ghost zone is kind of like a maze. He's very quickly discovering that he's not going to be able to find his way. That he's not going to be able to find his way through easily, because it is very maze-like. He's not gonna be able to navigate as easily as he was hoping. And eventually he winds up and eventually he does see a series of floating doors, and proceeds to go inside of one. And what he finds is a big, empty living room-like area with some random ghost kid. And And of course, Danny just tries to talk to the ghost kid, wondering if he's seen a present around in the ghost zone at any point, and wonders if he just decides to ask the ghost kid if he's seen it in general. But the ghost kid then proceeds to turn into a giant monster, and tells Danny to get out of his room. And Danny, in a panic, tells him insists that he was sorry for bothering him, and then leaves. And after explaining to Sam and Tucker what just happened, he explains how every single door in the ghost zone seems to be a new realm for a new ghost, and points out that he is never going to be able to find the present. But as he's talking, he winds up the door he's holding onto winds up sailing down onto a graveyard type area, and a bunch of skeletal ghosts pop out of the ground and start attacking him. So he flies off. But meanwhile, Tucker has still not stopped fiddling with the devices on the Fenton speeder, and also once again wonders why Danny decided not to take it. And in the process, even noting the cup holder, which Jack was very proud of when he first introduced it to Danny, and was showing off all the things it could do. But of course, he discovers that. But of course, in the process, he discovers a sort of an infrared scanner of sorts. Essentially, what it's designed to do, it is designed to pick up what Sam and Tucker discover is that it has a rudimentary map designed to detect real world objects, and it's at this point where they tell Danny that what they discovered. That the Fenton speeder has a scanner that can pick up real world objects, and they can maybe navigate him to the present with it. At which point they tell him to take a left through the door directly in front of him, and Danny proceeds to go through the door and discovers essentially a massive void full of random assorted lost objects. And Danny seems to, and the way Danny reacts seems to imply that this might be where all the things that people have lost over the years turn up. And it's at this point where Danny has an encounter with the box ghost, who shows up and insists that yes, this is his domain, and that anything that has ever been lost inside a box has ultimately wound up in his domain. And of course, Danny, annoyed to see the box ghost, asks him what he's doing there, and the box ghost then proceeds to respond what Danny thought happened when he shoved them inside his little cylindrical container, which and it's implied that but the box ghost doesn't know what a thermos is, so Danny explains it to him. But of course, and which causes him to just blurt out that he is the box ghost, and obviously he wouldn't know that. But Of course, he also proceeds to give Danny a warning, pointing out that he's not the only one of Danny's foes to be lurking around the ghost zone. Danny, of course, wonders why exactly it realizes that that's kind of a problem. But it's at this point where they hear sirens, and Danny proceeds to wonder what exactly it is that's going on. But the box ghost merely tells him to run. At which point he winds up getting captured, and then Danny winds up getting captured shortly after. And it's at this point where we suddenly are reintroduced to Walker, and Walker proceeds to tell them that they're in the possession of illegal contraband from the real world, and that he's going to need to take them in. And also he adds a new rule about how recording equipment is illegal as well. So he takes Danny's headset and breaks it. And of course it's at this point where Walker then proceeds to tell Danny that he told Danny that he shouldn't show his face around there anymore again, or they would have a problem, and now they have a problem. So, and it's at this point where they're both put into essentially a paddy wagon, but they're brought into a personal transport. They're put inside a prison transport vehicle with Danny kind of venting to nobody in particular, probably the box ghost, since the box ghost, is the only person he's really able to talk to at this point. But he starts venting to the box ghost about how he's worried about everything that's going on, pointing out that he's obviously been arrested he's lost in the ghost zone. His friends don't know where he is. He's been arrested, And worse yet, his parents are probably going to get a divorce and wonders if this could possibly be the worst day of his life. At which point, they arrive at Walker's prison, which is essentially Walker's realm within the Ghost Zone, and which makes perfect sense. And they are meted by several police task force ghosts, which are essentially Walker's minions, and they escort everybody out. And what Danny quickly discovers is every major antagonist he's ever fought throughout the series up until this point is in the prison waiting for him. And Danny concludes that it is, in fact, the worst day of his life. So that's kind of a problem. But and it's of course at this point where Sam and Tucker realize that they can no longer get in contact with Danny, and realize they're going to need to use the Fenton speeder to go in after him and try to find him. And of course, Sam points out that they really shouldn't try it out, pointing out that they should really stay there. But it's at this point where Jazz walks into the room and walks into the house and starts hollering to nobody in particular, but she's trying to find somebody to talk to. But she starts calling out names and asking if someone could help her read through her diary to figure out any other points where she might have been wrong. And Sam and Tucker immediately realize that they need to get out of it, that they would rather take their chances in the Ghost Zone than take their chances helping Jazz work through her emotional problems. So they immediately turn on the Fenton speeder and drive it into the Ghost Zone. And Jazz then proceeds to walk in several minutes after they do that, realizes that there's nobody in the house, and proceeds to become upset because she's been wrong again. But meanwhile, Jack is currently sipping lemonade that Alicia made, and of course she proceeds to insist that Jack's been there for a while now, done nothing but sip his lemonade, and that if he's going to apologize, he better damn well do it. And this is this point where Jack does proceed to get onto his knees, and is about to apologize to Maddie for what he's done. But before he can do that, he has to go to the bathroom again, and then leaves. And in the process, he runs into some hillbillies and wonders what exactly they does wonder what exactly it is they're doing. They're just spitting into a spittoon. And one of them has horrible teeth, which one of the guys comments on. But they start spitting into a spittoon, and he proceeds to ask them if they know where they have a bathroom, and he proceeds to tell them that they need to. That he should consider going on Alicia's rhubarb, even though she doesn't like him doing that. And but of course he also proceeds to also tell him about his problems about how he screwed up with his wife and he needs to make it up to her. But and the hillbillies just tell him exactly that he should just tell Maddie how he feels, and that he shouldn't hesitate on it. And Jack does take their advice to heart. At which point but also points out that he doesn't know the way to Alicia's house, and also he needs to go to the bathroom again. So he asks him where the rhubarb is, and they point him in the general direction of Alicia's rhubarb, and he goes to and he proceeds to go to the bathroom on it again. But and of course it's at this point where Danny is currently being processed by Walker. At which point Walker properly introduces himself to Danny. He goes on to explain who he is and what kind of ghost he is. And Walker is a law enforcement ghost. This should be apparent, but Walker essentially explains how he's the judge. He explains that he's the judge, jury, and executioner, but he says executioner in between the other two. And he is pointing out that, and when Danny comments on that, he points out that he really likes that part of the job. And he also proceeds to draft up a list of things that Danny has done wrong while in the Ghost Zone. Pointing out that trespassing, operating of an illegal vehicle, and having contraband. And what we find out is that Walker actually found Maddie's present, and it is just in his office. So and of course, Danny points out that there is a conflict of interest, and that he's actually there to remove the contraband. So he of course tells Walker that if he can just be on his merry way, they won't see him again, and then he'll just take the present with him and leave. But of course, Walker tells him that while he would like to let Danny go, he also points out that there are rules, and there are punishments for breaking them. But he does also tell Danny that since he's a first-time offender, he's willing to be lenient. At which point he gives him 1,000 years in prison, which causes Danny to immediately panic. So, and of course he then proceeds. Well, of course, on his first day there, Danny is escorted into the cafeteria, where he discovers all of his enemies sitting at the same table. You've got the box ghost. We've obviously Skulker. Skulker's there. Apparently, he got caught in between his appearances, which is considering the last time we saw him. He was working for Vlad. That makes some sort of sense that he would have been caught in between episodes. And also Desiree is there, and also Technis, who is for whatever reason in this battle suit. It's meant to be a callback to his debut episode, but yeah, for whatever reason Technis is in his battle suit here, and I don't fully understand why. I get it's loose continuity and stuff like that because it's a good show, but also. It's also weird that he's in his battle suit for whatever reason. I don't know. It's a fun callback, but I don't know. And that's the main reason why. But I'm also not entirely sure why he's wearing it in the first place. But okay, Danny of course sees all of his enemies sitting together at the same table, and of course wonders where and of course it remarks that it's just like high school. At which point all of his enemies get up. And proceed to beat the shit out of him for trapping him in the ghost zone and for the humiliating defeats he's dealt them with. And Danny gets knocked around a bit and eventually is knocked into the cafeteria station, where he hears yet another familiar voice asking him if he's all right and if he would like anything. At which point he sees that the lunch lady ghost not only works the cafeteria, but is also unhappy to see him. And I should mention this. First and foremost, the lunch lady is voiced by someone different. She as opposed to her original debut. But I should also mention something that I didn't bring up in her debut episode. The lunch lady ghost is implied to be bipolar because she will suddenly switch between sweet old lady and raving psychopath on the flip of a dime. And it's anyone's guess as to which one she'll be when she talks to you. So yeah, she's implied to be bipolar, which I find interesting. But in any case, she does offer to get Danny some food, but also asks him if he would also like a heaping helping of doom. At which point, she also joins in on the beatdown against Danny and grabs him so the other ghosts can beat him up. But eventually, Danny calls a timeout and tells them that he's not the enemy. And of course, Skulker is interested to know what exactly it is Danny's talking about and decides to hear him out. At which point, Danny points out that yes, he was responsible for putting them all in the ghost zone, but for all intents and purposes, he just sent them back home. He wasn't responsible for anything that happened inside the ghost zone, specifically the fact that they were all arrested. And of course, the box ghost does concur with Danny, pointing out that he wasn't the one who trapped them in this iron box, as he puts it. But of course, Skulker then proceeds to give the box ghost a shove because not only does he interrupt Danny, but he also starts being annoying shortly after he says this, and then asks Danny to continue. And Danny points out that Danny proceeds to tell them that. They can obviously get out of there, but they're going to need to work together to do that. And of course, Skulker smiles, pointing out that he's saying that the enemy of their enemy is their friend, at least for now, and does decide to hear Danny out and wonder what his plan is. But it's at this point where Sam and Tucker have been flying through the ghost zone for a while, and of course, Tucker points out that Sam points out that they're completely lost, and does wonder if they should stop and ask for directions. But Tucker, of course, tells Sam that that's a bad idea because they're in the ghost zone, and pretty much anybody could be hostile to them, especially since they're human. And And of course, Sam points out that Tucker's being ridiculous. At which point they see Dora pass by outside, and Sam decides to open the window on the Fenton speeder and asks if they know where to find their friend Danny. But first and foremost, apparently Dora got her amulet back in between her appearances, and is also apparently still bitter about the fact that her mother wouldn't let her go to the ball because she immediately goes full dragon mode and attacks them. And Sam realizes that Tucker was right, and they proceed to fly off. And meanwhile, we find out what Danny's plan is, which is to essentially get the shit beaten out of him by Skulker as kind of a big charade, so that he gets sent, so that he can get some of the guards to try and send him to the infirmary. And of course, the guards do immediately do this after seeing a fight break out and Danny seemingly being too weak to fight back anymore. And they do go in to drag him to the infirmary, but it's at this point where Danny proceeds to attack both of them and steals one of their weapons to hand off to Skulker. And Skulker, at this point, takes full advantage of this and rallies his fellow ghosts to stage a riot. And of course, it's at this point where all the ghosts proceed to fight back, including a cool, epic back-to-back shot of Danny and Skulker fighting side by side, which is awesome. But also we see them try to attack Technus, but since Technus is again in his battle suit for this episode for some reason, it's very one-sided, and he's able to effortlessly shrug them off. And also the box ghost even gets in on the action by tripping up some ghosts and pulling their helmets off. And eventually some ghosts show up and starts attacking some of the incidental ghosts who aren't important and aren't major antagonists in the slightest. They're just stock generic ghosts that were designed for this episode, and that's it. But it's at this point where the lunch lady proceeds to confront them and asks them if they would like a cookie. And of course they all look at each other for a few minutes before saying no, which causes the lunch lady ghost to go bipolar again and attacks them with a giant by summoning. Essentially, she uses her ghost powers to summon a giant turkey leg to use as a club and proceeds to send them all flying with it. And it's at this point where they proceed to go and confront and break their way out, while Danny proceeds to go deeper into the prison to find Walker, and of course everybody tells him that he's going the wrong way, and that they pointed out that he's supposed to come with them so that he can get, and with the lunch lady pointing out that he's supposed to come with them so that they can fight him again and sell the score, because he also promised that is a thing where if they broke out they could beat him up later. But he tells them that he's not going to go out just yet, pointing out that he still has one last thing to take care of with the warden. And the lunch lady ghost respects his decision and leaves. At which point Skulker points out that it was great fighting alongside Danny, but also points out that next time they will be enemies, and he looks forward to hunting Danny again. And Danny kind of doesn't fully know how to respond, so he just kind of says, "Thanks, I think." At which point he changes into his normal clothes and gets ready to go fight against Walker. Meanwhile, Sam and Tucker are still being chased by Dora, and do point out that and Sam is insistent that they go faster. But Tucker points out that not only are they trying to escape Dora, who has gone full dragon mode, but they're also trying to find out where Danny is. And they do discover that there is, in fact, that they do follow the real-world object locator, which does eventually lead them to Walker's prison. But Sam is worried. But Sam realizes that they're going too fast and they're going to run right into the prison, and asks Tucker to pull up. But Tucker realizes it's too late and then proceeds to phase right through the wall, which catches them completely off guard. And of course, Tucker wonders why they didn't pull that trick off earlier. And it's at this point where Danny proceeds to proceed, and of course at this point where Walker's currently figured out that there's a riot going on in this prison and is trying to figure out how to subdue it, and asks the guards what exactly is going on. At which point Danny barges in and tells him that maybe he should start by adding please and telling him that it's a rule. And Walker, wondering if it is in fact a rule, consults his rule book. At which point Danny closes it on his finger and tells him that it is now. And it's at this point where the two proceed to have a very brief confrontation until Danny figures out where the present is and tries to take it from Walker. But Walker heads him off, pointing out that Danny has caused a lot of trouble and that he's broken a lot of rules. And then he kind of needs to pay for some of them. But it's at this point where, and of course, it's at this point where Sam and Tucker proceed to face through the wall in the Fenton speeder, and Danny is curious exactly how they did that. And of course, and it's at this point where Sam and Tucker proceed to explain how they were able to phase through the wall because they established that in the ghost zone the rules are reversed. In the ghost zone, real world objects just phase through everything, and they're considered the ghosts. And realizing now how he's actually supposed to defeat Walker, he then proceeds to explain that maybe he should stop fighting like a ghost and start fighting like a kid. At which point he transforms back into his human form, and from that point the fight between him and Walker becomes completely one-sided in Danny's favor. And Walker is extremely confused, wondering why he can't actually touch Danny. But Danny, retrieving the present rather effortlessly from Walker's desk, then tells Walker that he's not a ghost, he's human, and proceeds to explain how Walker's rules don't apply to him before climbing onto the Fenton speeder and driving out while Walker laments the fact that Danny got away. And to this point where we then proceed to go into the end sequence of the episode, where Jack proceeds to come straight to Maddie with an apology, and proceeds to tell her that she knows he can be forgetful sometimes, and that he knows he's not always the man she deserves. But he also tells her that there's only one thing he loves more than hunting ghosts, and that's her. And moved by his apology, he proceeds. She is very happy. She is very happy that he came all the way that he did come all that way and decided to apologize to her. But then he also admits that in order to prove that he loves her, he proceeds to fish around in his luggage for the package that he bought her. But quickly discovers that he forgot it at home. And of course she then proceeds to ask if he did in fact forget the present he was supposed to get her. But it's at this point where Danny and Jazz proceed to parachute in from the plane, telling them that he didn't forget. He just left it at home so he wouldn't get attacked by mosquitoes, and then proceeds to hand the present off to Jack. And Jack thanks Danny and tells him that because of that he's getting a raise in his allowance, which of course Danny proceeds to wonder. He's to realize he's supposed to be getting an allowance, so he's a little bit confused on that. But in any case, at this point where Danny is a little curious as to what happened, and also hopes that means that they're not going to get divorced anymore. But Maddie then proceeds to wonder what exactly it is that he's talking about, and as this point it's revealed what Maddie was actually talking about the whole time when she said there was a divorce. And it's at this point where it's revealed that she actually took everybody out to celebrate the 10th anniversary of Elisha's divorce, complete with her ex-husband in a dunk tank. Which, of course, Elisha is very moved that they went through so much effort to keep it a surprise from her, and is very happy that Maddie put all this effort in to help her, and to just kind of celebrate her divorce. And she's very happy and proceeds to go off to partake in some of the festivities. And is this point where Jack asks Maddie to open her present, and what we find out is that instead of an actual gift, apparently the box ghost had stowed away inside of Maddie's present and proceeds to terrorize the festivities a little bit while Jack and Maddie chase him around. And it's a very funny little thing where they get to, renew their love by hunting a ghost. It's funny. But in any case, Danny is relieved about the fact that that it was only a misunderstanding and that his parents weren't getting divorced. And while Jazz is just happy that she's very happy that she admits that she knows she since learned that it's okay to be wrong, and that she would rather be wrong and learn from it than be right any day of the week. And And of course, at this point, where there's a mention that there's rhubarb pie, and Danny and Jazz mentioned wanting some, but then the episode ends when one of the hillbillies points out that they should probably stay away from the rhubarb. At which point the episode ends, because the implication is that Jack pissed on it so many times, it's probably inedible. So yeah, first and foremost, the episode has a lot of fun things in it. Obviously, the main thing in the episode is that we see the ghost zone, and the ghost zone is exactly what you expect. It's this amorphous thing. It's just this amorphous labyrinth of realms that you can go into, but you're not going to have a very good time navigating. So of course that introduces what the ghost zone is like. But also, this episode introduces us to Walker, and Walker is interesting because Walker's not evil, or at least not in the way the other ghosts might be. Because here's the thing: Walker's obviously established to be an enforcer of the ghost zone. He wants everybody. He makes up a series of rules to kind of maintain order within the ghost zone, and expects everybody to follow them, which of course causes him to be an enemy to both Danny and the other ghosts, who don't like him very much. So yeah, Walker's interesting. He's not evil. He's just overly cautious, and that winds up and that of course causes, and he's obviously very obsessed with order as well. So that of course results in him being an antagonist, but that doesn't necessarily mean he's a bad person. He just wants everybody. He just wants everything to be, he just wants to maintain order in an orderless world where everything is essentially chaos. And I do kind of like him for that. He's an interesting kind of antagonist. But also, this episode also showcases that when push comes to shove, Danny's rogues gallery is willing to work with him. That is what the episode establishes. That obviously they were more than willing to settle the score with Danny once he got locked up in prison with them for 1,000 years, but ultimately decided to let their grudge go for the time being, because they realized that Danny wasn't the one who put them in the prison, and they decided to work together toward a common enemy. I do kind of like that as an episode standpoint. From an episode standpoint, is a fun story. And also the entire thing about how Danny is obviously worried that his parents are getting divorced. That is obviously one of the early. I think that's one of the earliest mature things that the story does, because obviously the story deals with. That's one of the things the series is praised with. A lot of mature storytelling and writing that makes it feel like an adult show without being an adult show. It is, and that's probably the earliest thing about that. That's Danny is angst about his family being potentially breaking up, and he decides to do something about it, which results in the main conflict for the episode. So yeah, I do like that overall as an episode. But in case, that is going to do it for today's review. Hope you guys enjoyed. I would hopefully appreciate it if you guys continue to watch and like all of these, because I've been working hard on them, and I hope you guys have enjoyed watching them as much as I have enjoyed making them. But in case, yeah, that's gonna do it for today. So thank you guys so much for watching. If you enjoyed, be sure to like, comment, and subscribe. Also, be sure to follow me on Twitter in the description below. Be sure to also check out my Discord, because toward the end of the month, we are going to be doing a movie watch-along on there. So I hope you guys will go and hang out with that. Go check out the Discord, go join the Discord, because we're going to be doing a watch-along over there. So I would appreciate that. But and also be sure to go and check out my Patreon, because these are difficult to make, and if you want to absolutely help support the channel, that is the best way to do that. Just go check out my Patreon. I would appreciate that. But also be sure to go and check out my Twitch, because we are going to be streaming horror games throughout the entire month of October. So if you don't want to miss those, by all means go hang out. And I should mention, the first one we're going to be doing our first VR stream. We're going to be streaming a VR horror game, so that's going to be exciting. I will give more details. I will have given more details by this point, but you guys will see that. But in case, yeah, that's going to do it for today. So thank you guys so much for watching, and as always, I will see you guys in the next video. Peace.